A food allergy diagnosis changes your life. It affects you, your family, your education, your career, your everything. That being said, as with all adversity in life, you have choices on how you can handle it. Some people choose to raise their hands, stand up, and get involved as advocates. They look food allergy right in the face and say, "I've got this." And they focus their energy on empowering others to feel the same way. These food allergy warriors range in age and background, but have one thing in common. They turned their food allergy story into action. Now I'm going to shine a light on them to inspire you to join the fight against food allergies. This is Take Action with Hillary Carter. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Take Action. I'm Hillary Carter. I'm a food allergy mom and advocate and proud member of FARE's Board of Governors. Today is truly a highlight, possibly the very best creme de la creme of all Take Actions. We have the CEO of FARE with us, Lisa Gable. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, Hillary, thanks so much for inviting me to the show. I enjoy watching it and seeing all of your guests, so I'm just honored to be part of it.
Thrilled. And there's so much we could talk about. We could literally be here for days and days, but as we know, this is your last week at FARE. So let's just dive right in. Let's go right to FARE. Tell me about where FARE was when you came on board a few years ago.
Well, it's hard to believe it's been exactly 3 years and 9 months since I started at FARE, and so much has happened. It really has. I walked in the door to meet a committed group of board members, FARE staff members. FARE had amazing educational content that came through and had been approved in working with the different doctors, as well as some of the educators within the organization. The FARE Clinical Network had been launched. We had the results of the LEAP study. So there's some really good content and tools and things that needed to be leveraged and expanded and taken to more places. And that was one of the reasons I was hired to come into FARE, is that my background is one where I've brought in partners to every organization that I've worked with, both from the government standpoint, as well as the private sector, businesses, as well as other not-for-profits, and put together what we call multi-sectoral programs so that they can work together. And looking at this amazing content that I was able to inherit, what I wanted to do is build a system where we could leverage it at the greatest degree possible to make it very cost effective to deliver that content to every single person who needed it. So that meant more people in the college program, and then expanding what eventually became the learning management system, the FARE Check program, taking content and embedding it in the platforms and the channels of things like Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts and different boys and girls clubs and other types of structures like WIC. So we've really had this exponential growth in the Living Teal channel, of which your program is part, is a prime example of that, where we're able to get this message out, we're able to help more people. And that was truly one of the goals that we set when I joined the organization.
It's really astonishing what happened in such a short amount of time. And as you said, you were brought in to turn this organization around, which Lord knows you did. Let's talk a little bit about the 5-year plan. I know that you came in, you met with everyone, you very strategically sat down and thought about what was working, what wasn't working, what needed to happen. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the 5-year plan really goes to the credit of Nuri Hong, who worked very closely with Tom Casale, myself, and Dave Bunning. And what that was is that we wanted a 5-year plan. And through that, we were going to actually start a campaign, which we started, that was called the Contains Courage campaign, with the goal of raising $200 million for research. And we needed to have a roadmap. And so what Nuri did is he went and talked to over 150 people within the food allergy world. And he found out from people what were the biggest things FARE needed to invest in order to achieve the greatest change. And what his research showed him is he looked at things like removing regulatory barriers and doing what I was talking about a few minutes ago, which is taking our educational content and leveraging it through partnerships and through the US government to get it to more people. But one of the critical areas that we needed to focus on is how did we invest dollars so that research could be done in a manner that would bring innovation to the consumer, to the patient, much more quickly, so that we had a wide variety of research. And then the second thing is that Nuri did this landscape document. And what the landscape document showed is it showed all the clinical trials and the different drugs that were in development at the point in time that we started. And so within that, our team identified where are the holes, where are places that people haven't funded yet and needed to be funded. So one of the prime examples that was highlighted in the plan was the prevention project, which today is the SEED research program being run by Dr. Ruchi Gupta at Northwestern. It was looking at things like biomarkers, and we did a big grant with J&J that was a biomarker research grant, was awarded to King's College. And we've got the diagnostic challenge that's coming out soon that I know your family was one of the very kind contributors of. The other area we needed to research is the underlying cause of the disease. And so the relationship that we developed with FASI was where we were fulfilling that part of the plan. I've got to tell you, I actually have these 2 slides up on my screen right now that I look at every single quarter. And what the slides did is it said, these are our primary objectives. These are the very specific projects we need to fund under those objectives. And this is how much it's going to cost. And we had that approved by the board. We went and met with all of the donors. We were able to raise $75 million off the bat in the first 18 months through that plan. And what we have done, knowing that they trusted us to fund and do exactly what they asked us to do, is I looked at that 2-page slide every single quarter. Every single quarter, I pull it out and I look at the programs that we're running. I look at what we said we were going to do. I look at how much we are spending. And to date, we have executed on every single one. And I'm so proud of that. And I'm so proud of the FARE team that we have had that rigorous dedication and diligence to ensuring that we did exactly what we told the donors that we would do. And now we're seeing amazing results from that work. And so as I get ready to pass the baton, that was important to me. I had those criteria in my mind and in place, and I check them all the time. Bruce has got a copy of this, so he'll be checking them too. But that was what the 5-year plan is about. And so we're entering what I call phase 3 of that plan. And it's a very exciting time to have that infrastructure in place and be ready to start production.
Amazing. And, I have the privilege of knowing you and knowing FARE as a donor, as a food allergy mom, as a board member. And so I've had the behind the scenes privilege of getting to see this. And it has been so thoughtful, so strategic. Everybody's done what they said they were going to do. And it's been an honor to watch it happen. So I'm going to say thanks a lot during this, but thank you so much for everything you've done. Before we move on, I really do. I know it's not in our female nature to give ourselves a high five, but I really, really want you to share where we are now, the achievements based on that 5-year plan, based on you coming in and turning things around. Tell us the successes. Tell us what you're most proud of.
Well, what I am most proud of is the incredible delivering of that plan that we have done. One of the things that was of great importance was building what I call the pre-competitive infrastructure. That pre-competitive infrastructure, which we now have an industry advisory council that we're working with to help fund that infrastructure, are things like the FARE Clinical Network that's been expanded to over 50 major medical institutions across the United States. It included setting up the data commons and the biobank and the biorepository, all of which the patient registry is part of that. We again started with certain foundational pieces, but we needed to have an entire framework and infrastructure in order to accelerate our ability and also the ability of other organizations and companies that are interested in funding in this space and give them the tools that they need in order to accomplish their objectives. So that is probably the longest lasting deliverable that I will leave behind. And it's thanks to the good work of Tom Casale, Rob Lemansky, and Bruce Roberts. They get all of the credit for that. And I can't take the credit for it. The other thing is that we raised $100 million. And that was a goal for me. I wanted to have achieved that objective before I passed the reins on to the next person. It's a really important benchmark. And what we did is that we received that money through what we call multi-year commitments, which is that people would pay out their commitment over a 5-year period of time. What was fortunate for us, and we didn't realize it at the time, is that when COVID hit, we already had that money in the pipeline. And so one reason why FARE is in a strong position it is in today is because we've actually been able to conserve cash and utilize that pipeline of funding that we arranged and we raised prior to COVID to help keep everything on track and delivering deliverables, making them what they were supposed to be, delivering when they needed to be. And finally, and most importantly, I would say is the partnerships. We have seen this unity of purpose develop across the entire food allergy community. We see doctors from across the country working with each other. We see advocates, the Teen Advisory Committee, the Rising Leaders, the Board of National Ambassadors, Board of Governors, our work with the Collaborative, which is our work with the other food allergy groups. Having everyone come together, buy into this framework and this roadmap that we've been talking about, and then other people making investments that add on to the investments we're making, it's just been fabulous to see all of this happen.
It's all so amazing to watch. And I'm really glad you brought up partnerships, because if you didn't, I was going to, because as a food allergy mom who has been around in this world for 10 years and was at FARE before you came along, that to me has been the most fun thing to witness, because I do think this community was really siloed before your reign at FARE, and not necessarily for any reason, but there wasn't enough collaboration. And we all are looking for the same thing here, which is treatments and research, and hopefully one day a cure. So thank you for paving the way for that. I'm going to do a little bit of a transition based on partnerships. You wrote an amazing book, Turnaround. And we're not going to go too much in depth because there's just so much food allergy stuff we can talk about, but I did want to talk about it for a moment because I loved reading it. And I really think this is a great read for anybody. Doesn't matter if you're an executive coming in to do a turnaround, it could be relevant in your life no matter what's happening. But the reason why I want to talk about it is because your background is amazing. If I were to sit here and read your bio, it would take the whole time. So give us a little highlight of your experience before FARE and how you think about business and how you were able to come in and do this work for us.
Sure. Well, one thing that my book highlights, and you all also know that I publish a lot in a lot of online magazines and print magazines and various media channels, is I was able to take the manufacturing disciplines that I learned at Intel Corporation and incorporate those with the art of diplomacy that I learned at the White House and at the State Department. And that tool set that I was able to have enabled me to do turnarounds and take organizations to the next level of performance in business, government, and philanthropy. And so what the book outlines, and what I do like to talk a lot about, and what we talk about at FARE, is the importance of process. We use at FARE the decision trees. We use ranking and rating all the time. We go through a continuous ranking and rating program and process internally to determine whether or not we're getting the ROI, the return on investment, for everything that we do. But the other element of it is heart. And one thing I point out and that I talk a lot about is the importance of the people. Because what we know is that every action we take, sometimes even hard business decisions, they impact a person. We know that the changes that we've made at FARE have an impact on personnel. We know that it has an impact on our partners. And so sometimes you still have to make a tough change. You have to make a hard decision. The way in which you treat people is really the most important thing. And that gets back into the partnerships. We are all partners. And as you said, we all have a common goal. And so one of the things I've always focused on is how do we get everybody to come together? I told someone recently that I feel like Mary Poppins when she originally shows up and she's reaching down into that big bag of hers and she's pulling out the hat rack and the plant and all of these these things. And, I've been doing this now for 39 years. And so when I come into any organization like FARE, I start immediately calling all of my friends who've done partnerships and programs with me before. I'm like, okay, I've got another one. This is what I need from you. Are you in? And the lovely thing is so many people that I've had throughout my life have stepped in. Some have actually joined FARE as employees. And now I also feel like Mary Poppins. I feel like I'm at the end of the movie with the Banks family saying, okay, you've got what you need. You're in a good place. You don't need me anymore because all the pieces are there. And that's, that's sort of the sum total of how I come into organizations and how I hope to leave them.
Well, and you talk about in your book, the last chapter is ending on a high note. And so anyone who's read this book, you make it pretty clear that you were brought on to FARE for a finite amount of time. You wanted to come in and turn it around and hand it over. This was always the plan. And Lord knows you have accomplished that goal. And you talk about really knowing when it's your time and knowing what to do next and how to gracefully hand it over. And so I just appreciate everything that you've done. And I appreciate you knowing when it's time to go. And we're going to miss you so much, but I'm hoping I'm one of those people who stays in your network regardless. But thank you. And I really do hope everyone goes and grabs that book. One more thing. As I was reading it for the food allergy community, as a food allergy parent, I really was thinking how it's relevant to our journey as parents. And you are constantly, because you talk about, you assess what's going on, figure out what the real problem is, figure out what works, what doesn't, then go forward with conviction and grace. And it's a relevant read for anyone. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So let's talk about moving forward and ending on a high note. And we have Bruce Roberts coming in. So tell us a little about that transition.
Sure. Well, what my staff knows, because I've told them this a couple of times, but I don't think everybody externally knows, is that my original contract was to end in June of 2021. And in September of 2020, my board and I had a conversation, and we revisited that conversation in December of that year. And I said, I think that we're going to go through a much tougher year next year, 2021, than we are in this current year. And so what I wanted to do is I said, look, I'm not going to leave in June. I had predicted that you would have a lot of people quitting their jobs. You would have the downstream impact of changes going on because a lot of people wanted to hit the reset button after it's not as if 2020 was a wonderful experience for many. It was a very, very hard experience. And so a lot of people I knew would want to leave that behind. And so we were entering into probably the most unpredictable year. So I couldn't leave in June and announce a CEO search because everything wouldn't be in place. The second thing we knew we would start to experience, and we really saw that, was delays. Because of supply chain disruption, you were seeing delays in clinical trials, and that's part of our revenue stream is how we support clinical trials. And all of a sudden, master services agreements would get delayed for 3 months, or maybe there was a donor who thought they were going to sell their business last year, and so they had planned to make and told us they were going to make a multi-million-dollar commitment, but they had to delay that until the market picked back up and the business could be sold. And so we worked out a deal where I would sign an agreement, which I did, which said I'll basically stay until it's the right time to turn it over. And so I had a series of criteria that I really wanted to make sure that we met. Wanted the seed project with Ruchi and the Northwestern team in place, ready to go. I wanted the diagnostic challenge announced. I wanted to have the food labeling process underway with an excellent professional, of which we have Bob Earl. Wanted to raise that $100 million, but most importantly, I wanted the staff to be in a good place where they knew what they were executing and they had the infrastructure to support them in meeting really difficult goals during a complex time. And that leads to Bruce. We managed off of my checklist to accomplish and put into place all the pieces by the end of November. And the team was going through this very rigorous process of ranking and rating and creating decision trees based on when this revenue came in, we'd flip on this switch. If it was delayed for a month or two, then we would hold on the switch. And so we have this roadmap that's very, very specific, which is what will enable the organization to move forward. And the number one thing we had planned is that by 2022, 2023, that research would be receiving the majority of funds. And so by the end of 2023, we want 75% of FARE funds going to research. And right now it's in the high 50s. What does that mean? It means that you need to have someone with research experience, with biotech and pharma experience, someone who knows how to bring a drug through the FDA for approval. You need to hand the baton to that person, because I don't have that information. I don't have that knowledge. And so in order to make that pivot, that's always been part of our plan, I was waiting for the right moment to pass the baton. And Bruce Roberts is an amazing human being. He came into FARE and he has set up this entire, what I call the pre-competitive infrastructure, since starting only in May of 2020. He set this entire thing up: data commons, biorepository, FARE clinical network, the SEED study, the diagnostic challenge. That's really taken place in a 15-month period of time. And so Bruce is really the right person to help get all the pieces in place, so that when the search is completed with Korn Ferry, we will have someone literally handing over a different organization, but one that is designed to be sustainable and deliver on our promise.
I love it. And what I hope people at home understand is that it's so important when you're doing a CEO search to wait and get the right person, and not just get the first person or the fastest person. So I think it's incredibly strategic and smart that we have this very fluid transition where you and Bruce have worked together. He will take the reins. When it's the right time and the right person comes along, we'll move forward. But it's such a great plan, and you've left us in such great hands. So thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit. You mentioned the word pivot, which is probably one of my very favorite words. And in this show, Take Action, a huge majority of my audience are food allergy parents, many of whom have pivoted due to their children's diagnosis. So I really wanted to talk a little bit, while I have you, about your management style. Two different things. One, how people zigzag to the top. I remember the very first time I met you, right when you were hired, and I was saying, I was doing all this work and I've taken a step back because I'm dealing with my kids' food allergies. And you said, oh, please, I zigzagged my way to the top. And for you, it was dealing with different, health issues with your husband and your family. And it really comforted me. It stayed with me. I was like, if Lisa can do it, I can do it. So let's talk about zigzagging to the top. And what advice would you have for parents who might be watching, who may have taken a break, want to get back in, how to keep all of your work experience relevant?
Well, Hillary, it's been a joy to watch you over the last 4 years, because you really have, I've watched you move forward, and I've watched the incredible care that you give to your child's health, your children's health. And I know that you've had some scares of late, but at the same time, you've continued to move forward. I think there are a couple of things. One is, it's okay to take a step back. And I think that's one thing that moms and dads don't understand. My husband had to take steps back because he had two autoimmune diseases, and he's had 8 rounds of cancer. And so he's had points where, everyone's heard me say this, it's not revealing a lot. He weighed 96 pounds for many, many years. And so he had to step back. He was one of the top executives at Apple. And so he had to step out for a period of time. But life is like a soap opera. It really is. You can turn off the TV and come back 5 years later, and maybe people are married to different people, but they're all still there. And so one of the things that I learned is, how do you keep and take care of job one, which is your family, whatever issue is making you take that step back. But then how do you keep your credentials growing, improving, and evolving, so that when you are ready to step back in, maybe when that child goes off to college, or maybe when that spouse like mine got to a health point that was in a better situation, you can enter back in as if you never left, because people have seen you. What you're doing is you're spending very targeted amounts of time doing very specific things that maintain your credibility to have a seat at the table. In some cases, maybe joining a board that allows you to have that identification on your resume, but you don't have to do a full-time job. But the most important thing is, you're also building your own personal team. And so I always talk about, to zigzag, the best way to do it is help other people up the career ladder. If you can't be working full time, but maybe you're working on a board, maybe you're doing things like working with Jonathan on the Living Teal channel, or maybe an advocate for FARE, help your buddy. help that tag member, help that rising leader, write them a letter of recommendation, because as you help other people up the career ladder, then the moment where you're entering back in, they're going to help you too. And I call it the daisy chain, or maybe I used to have monkeys in a barrel, and you may remember all their little arms connected to each other. But having that personal team that's with you and committed to you on that journey is probably one of the most important things. And that's what we've done at FARE. I mean, Christy Grimm deserves amazing recognition for what she did with TAG, because I am so excited about that group, Board of National Ambassadors, the people that have come together, the rising leaders. We are forming that daisy chain internally within FARE, and it's been lovely to see each other helping different people at points in times. I read all of your social media, and you're helping Hungry Harry's and Latitude and Elijah's program that Thomas has been able to get across the United States, that partnership, everyone doing it together. Nobody cares who gets the credit, but it allows each of us to achieve our objectives. And then on a personal level, when you need to rebuild your career, you've already got the building blocks there.
Amazing. And you just hit two birds with one stone, because the next thing I wanted to talk about was mentoring, because you talk about that so much in your book. And I've seen it in person. You really make everybody feel important to the cause and important to the organization. And you have been so great coming to all of our Connecticut events, and people love working with you. And I think it's so important in the food allergy community. And we talk about this a lot, paying it forward. There's somebody like Helen Jaffe was such a fairy godmother to me. And now I'm helping the new generation of food allergy parents. So it matters professionally and personally, but I agree it's so key. So thank you for hitting both of those topics at once. Let's talk about moving forward, looking ahead. What's next for FARE? What's next for you? What are your sort of dreams and wishes for FARE and for the food allergy community going forward?
Well, FARE is in a great position of strength right now. And that's saying a lot, considering that we are coming into phase 3 of the pandemic. But FARE has an amazing group of professionals. We've talked about the incredible partnerships and relationships that we built in the community that we have. And the most important thing is going to be our ability to bring therapies and diagnostics and solutions to family members, to those patients, in order to mitigate risk of the disease. And so the degree that we now have this infrastructure, and what we now know is it's sustainable. And as we can put the ingredients into the infrastructure, whether it's those biosamples, it's patient-reported outcomes, it's patient-focused drug development, it's the actual research itself, it's all an ingredient. It goes into the mixing bowl. And we now have a way for exponential growth, for moving those things forward. And what we're seeing is, at the FDA right now, I describe it as there are a lot of planes in holding patterns. DBV is one. It's been in a holding pattern because of COVID. If anything's non-COVID related, it's not getting landed at the moment. But at some point in time, the FDA is going to land all those airplanes. And what we've done is we have already taken into account what has to happen when those airplanes land. So let me give you an example. We know from LEAP that if you feed a child with eczema peanut early and often in the first 2 years of life, it decreases their chance of developing a food allergy. If the SEED study proves the hypothesis, and it turns out that by feeding children multiple allergies early and often in the first 2 years of life decreases food allergies, we're going to see in just a few years a huge decrease in the development of food allergies. But how do we make that decrease happen? You can do research, but it can't happen in isolation. So we're already talking to WIC about, which is Women, Infant, and Children. It's a government-funded program to make sure that those allergies, those proteins, are available to people no matter what their financial situation is, no matter where they live. And so we're getting that set up. Secondarily, we're already talking to pediatricians, and we're making sure that they're aware of the LEAP study. We're making sure that they know we're doing this other study. And so by seeding the ground in advance, at the moment we know the results, we have a way to start flipping switches across the United States. And I hope that we see a precipitous drop in food allergies within children sometime in 5 years. That's not too far away. And as we start landing these airplanes, there's some really exciting drugs that may be coming onto the market. So I just got off the phone with an entrepreneur at UCO. I just adore her. She's, I think, one of those fascinating people. The stuff that she's doing in gene editing, the things that she's doing in the field of drug development. So we're at a really, really exciting time. We just needed to have the platform by which all of these things could be launched simultaneously. And that's what we've developed at FARE. And so I'm just proud of my team for putting that in place.
It's really so exciting. And I've said to so many people in the last 6 months or so, I really feel hopeful as a food allergy parent. We really are, I think, at the forefront of a lot of exciting things coming. So thank you again for your part in that. So again, this show is called Take Action. And I always ask every single guest, what are your tips for those who are watching who want to take action and get involved in advocacy? And you have a very special standpoint from this because you've watched thousands of advocates over the last few years, 3.5 years at FARE, and you've worked in government a lot in your life. So what are your tips? What do you think makes the most effective advocate?
Well, you've got a limited amount of time, so do a few things and do them well. Writing letters does make a big difference. So if all you have time to do is go onto your congressional member's website and fill in a letter to them, that's okay. That makes a big difference. If you can make a phone call, even better. If you can participate in one of the fly-ins that FARE has, whether it's in person or hybrid or on Zoom, or visit one of your local offices when those members of Congress come home. With the Food Allergy Research Caucus, we now have a bipartisan commitment that grew out of all the amazing work you all did with FASTER to have a group of people who really don't agree on a lot politically. They all come from very different parts of their parties and from the political perspective, but they're all unified in ensuring that food allergies is prioritized as decisions are being made. So know that your voice makes a difference. And don't think, well, I can't do that, because you can do it. You are an American citizen. We live in an amazing democracy. We all not only get to vote, we get to go into the halls of Congress, maybe not as physically as we used to, but I've been in other countries. I've been in communist countries. I've been in dictatorships. I've worked all over the world. We have something really special, and you are empowered by the very nature of living in these great United States to take action and make a difference. So I hope that you will.
I love it. Thank you so much for that wonderful advice. And as I said in the beginning, we're so fortunate to have you here your last few days at FARE. We're rounding up our time together. Do you have any final words you'd like to share with the food allergy community?
I just want to thank everyone. I really do. This isn't about me. The changes that have taken place in the last 3.5 years are because of you. And it has been such an honor and a privilege to work with each and every one of you. And I'm not going away. I'm still alive and kicking. And my contact information is going to be on my auto reply. And I really want to hear from you. You are still allowed to run things by me and just go, can you help me with this, or can you help me with that? And especially if there are any TAG members listening or any of our rising leaders, I am bound and determined that we're going to get you into the best schools in the country and the best jobs in the country, because we need you. You are going to be the leaders that bring all this stuff we start today. It takes 8 years to 12 years for something to get through the FDA. So, hey, the baton's going to be passing, and I am really hoping that you're in Congress, or that you're a PhD candidate someplace, or maybe you're working at an investment firm, but we want to help you. And I'm just so proud of everything that you all have done.
I'm just going to go ahead and second that, because the team members that I've gotten the opportunity to meet, the college members, they are amazing and such superstars. So thank you for all the work you've done for them. Lisa, oh, it's been such an incredible honor for me to have the privilege to get to work with you the last few years and to watch this evolution. I can't wait to stay in touch. You're not losing touch with me. Tell us where we can follow your journey from here. I know you have a social media platform. Where can people see you?
So I actually have my own marketing and PR team, which you guys probably guessed just because I'm so active, that's been in place for the last number of years. And you can follow me at LinkedIn and you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Secondarily is I've got Lisa Gable author on Instagram and as well as Facebook. And as everyone now knows, I am like Dear Abby and I do answer people. So send me a note on LinkedIn. It's the best way to reach me and I will answer you. And I want to see what you do. We've planted a lot of seeds and I can't wait to see how they flower and how they develop. And so I look forward to staying in touch with you all. We've spent too much time together to lose touch now.
Absolutely true. And as always, everyone at home, you know that the best resource for all factual food allergy information is foodallergy.org. And you can find FARE across all social media platforms at Food Allergy. I also love hearing from you. I know I'm not quite as special as Lisa Gable, but if you want to reach out, I have a website, hillarytolcarter.com, and I'm on Instagram at hillarytolcarter. Lisa, again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you from our community. Thank you from FARE. Thank you for everything. It's been such an honor. We wish you all the very, very best on your next adventure.
Thank you, Hillary.